Hey, good morning. I'm Colonel Victor Satterlund, the commander of the 199th Leader Brigade here at Fort Benning, Georgia. Hey, today is a second part of our series of our podcasts on all things IBOLC, ABOLC, OCS, and Fort Benning writ large. Today we're going to dig in a little bit on a topic that I'm continually asked about with students that come here to Fort Benning for the Infantry Basic Officer Leader course. And really that's the course design, how it's laid out over the weeks, and some of the things that are entailed in each one of the weeks, how they're graded, and some things that they can do to prepare themselves to come to Fort Benning and be successful at IBOLC. So what I want to cover for you are two real topics here. So on the left, it's probably a little bit hard for you to see, but we have the 19 weeks of IBOLC broken down by week. And what we have are really 4 different gates as you go through the 19 weeks. And those are broken down by weeks, and I'll cover those more in detail as we go through this. And then to the right, if you want to look at, so these are the weeks and the gates that you have to make it through to proceed through the course of the 19 weeks to be successful and graduate. On the right, what we have is a breakdown of what we call the ISAP, the Individual Student Assessment Plan. And that is how we grade and evaluate students as they go through the Infantry Basic Officer Leader course here at Fort Benning, Georgia. So first, let's talk about the course week laydown or breakdown and how we've broken down the 19 weeks for you. So it follows a standard training methodology. All right, so as you come to Fort Benning, you're going to do, as we talked about in the previous podcast, you're going to do 2 weeks of in-processing here at Fort Benning. That's really run by 381. So you'll come, you'll arrive, you'll sign into IBOLC. IBOLC will give you reporting instructions over to Building 4, where 381 headquarters will assume responsibility of you, and they will run you through the 2-week provost in processing. And that is conducted in room Whiskey 120 on the first floor in the west wing of Building 4. Very easy to identify, easy to find, large parking lot off to the west. You walk in the door and you'll see Whiskey 120. You'll go in there, you'll report, and they will take care of you over those first 2 weeks. And those first 2 weeks, as we talked about previously, are designed to get you 100% prepared to administratively to enter into IBOLC and not be concerned about anything else. So your DD-93s, your SGLV, your travel, your pay, all other online administrative 350-1 requirements prior to starting IBOLC will be complete there, so that as you go into IBOLC, you're fully concentrating on what you need to be focused on there in the course itself. And that is the material that we'll be covering here. All right, so once you finish the 2-week provost in processing, you will then go back over to IBOLC and begin the 19-week program of instruction, the POI. All right, so gate 1 coming into, once you finish in processing, is going to be just conducting height and weight in accordance with AR 350-1 and AR 600-9. All right, height and weight requirements are all based off your body fat composition, your height and your weight. You'll be measured. If you are cleared, you will go ahead and move into the course and begin attendance of the course in the 19 weeks POI. If for some reason you fail height and weight, you're going to be flagged. You're going to be put on the Army height and weight, the body fat composition program, and then we will begin taking you through the appropriate steps, seeing providers to go ahead and get you back on a plan to get you healthy so that you can then go back into the course and start and be successful. So that is gate 1. That happens immediately upon in processing during week 1. From week 3 to week 5, you're going to begin. So week 1 is in processing. Week 2, you're going to begin doctrinal foundations. So doctrinal foundations for us, for the focus at the platoon level operations, is infantry, platoon, and squad, which is ATP 3-21.8. This is, for lack of a better term, your Bible, or what you'll be using and focusing on for platoon operations throughout your duration in IBOLC, and when you move off to your unit of assignment as a platoon leader. This is what you need to focus on. All right, so we'll be covering doctrinal foundations during week 2, and then you will go into basic rifle marksmanship during week 3, and then during week 4, you'll actually then begin your M4 qualification, and you will transition into fire team live fires and end that Gate 2 with land navigation. All right, so getting a little bit more in depth. So in processing, doctrinal foundations, we're going to get you baseline going into the course. So as we begin to write operations orders, you have the doctrinal foundation, understand the proper terms, symbols, terminology, and doctrinal definitions so that you can write a doctrinally correct operations order at the platoon level. That is our focus. You're going to move into the basic rifle marksmanship as we discussed. This is where you're going to learn to be familiarized with your CCO, the sight on your weapon system, the close combat optic, and then you're going to learn how to properly zero your weapon. And then going into that week 4, you're going to actually run the M4 qualification table to make sure that you're proficient with your weapon system. Now that in a training methodology, building progression, moving into the fire team live fires. So at fire team live fires, you're going to learn the foundation of how the formation, the different movement formations within a fire team and a squad, the duties and responsibilities of the individuals within that fire team, the fire team leader, the grenadier, the automatic rifleman, the saw gunner, and then the M4 soldier that rounds out that fire team. And then how do those two teams then combine within a squad to prepare and move to combat as part of your platoon. The fire team live fire will then validate you under day and night live fire conditions, react to contact, and movement through contact. And then we're going to move into land navigation. Land navigation, we have 4 different ranges here, land navigation courses, that we use on Fort Benning. And we will take you out there. You will get classes on land navigation, how to read a map, terrain orientation, proper map symbols and terminology, and how to plot an azimuth, plot a point, figure out your azimuth, move 2 points, and find them under day and night conditions. So that is Gate 2. So Gate 2 to move from Gate 2 to Gate 3, which begins with week 6. You have to meet the qualification standards with your M4, and you have to pass land navigation. That will allow you to move to Gate 3, which is comprised of basic troop leading procedures and operations order. So what happens if you don't qualify with your M4 or you don't pass land navigation? So you'll be given an opportunity to retest during that same Gate 2 on your M4 qualification or your land navigation. If you fail that retest, you will then be recycled into the next class for failure to meet standards. There's a potential that you would go in front of a blue packet review board depending on your scores and your standards and what you do. But generally what we see is individuals that are having a little bit more difficulty with M4 qualification or land navigation when they recycle and receive the additional training while they're waiting for the next class to start, have no problem, continue to pass and move past that gate once they restart the next class. Gate 3, the focus there is going to be basic troop leading procedures and operations orders. So going into Gate 3, you're going to receive formal classes of instruction back here at Fort Benning in the classroom on basic troop leading procedures, how to properly conduct them in accordance with doctrine. You're going to receive classes on infantry platoon weapons, the weapons that are organic within your platoon formation. As I stated previously, in fire team operations, we're talking about the M249 saw, we're talking about the M203 grenade launcher, we're talking about the M4 and the M240 Bravo 7.62 machine gun. Those weapons organic to the platoon formation, going to receive classes on them, proper implementation of them, and where they exist within the fire team, the squad, and the platoon level, and who is maneuvering and handling them, and what is the best application for that weapon system in all sorts of offensive, defensive operations, depending on what your platoon's mission is. So you receive that doctrinal foundation during week 6. During week 7, you go through infantry platoon weapons. So during this phase, you're going to go out and actually qualify for those individuals within a platoon that are potentially assigned as saw gunners for the duration of the course, or M240 gunners, or M203 gunners. We're going to actually take the entire platoon out to those ranges and run them through familiarization and qualification on those weapon systems. That, again, in a training methodology is to ensure we're following the proper steps to make sure that the entire platoon is trained as we continue to move towards the culminating event of your platoon live fire. So everybody having to be qualified on the weapon system, proficient in their weapon system prior to going out and conducting a live fire. So we'll take you through infantry platoon weapons, and then we'll go into introduction into squad operations. So introduction to squad operations, during this week, you're going to conduct a 6-mile foot march either out to the training area or back from the training area, or while you're actually out in the training area. But this is where you're going to conduct stick slayings, situational training exercises, and learn the foundations of squad tactics in a field environment, giving field operations orders in accordance with doctrine and ATP 3-21.8. And you will be led by your cadre through cadre-led operations and squad maneuvers, understanding squad battle drills, and understanding the fundamentals of operations at the squad level. You will then transition into squad live fires and fires integration. So similar to what you did during fire team, where you received a doctrinal foundation, classes back here at Fort Benning, then transition to a field environment, actually put it into practical application. We're applying that same methodology again to squad level operations. So you'll go out and you'll conduct squad level live fires, react to contact, knock out a bunker, or react to contact attack under day and night live fire conditions as an organic member of a squad in one of the two fire teams, or as a squad leader in a leadership position. You'll round out Block 3 when a week we call Week 10, which will be enablers. So this is a week where you're going to learn about engineer, logistical, medical, field artillery, and SOF. So conceptually within our doctrine, how do all these other services or branches, fall into the bigger picture of what you are going to experience as a platoon leader when you potentially deploy to combat or another field environment? How do these enablers assist you in accomplishing your mission? What are their core tasks or core mental tasks that they are assigned to achieve, and what are they training to, so that you know how to properly integrate them either within your formation or alongside your formation, and where do they fit in the broader picture of what you're executing at a platoon or a company level appropriately for the mission set that you've been assigned. During Block 3, the two graded things we're looking at for you to move forward is obviously the 6-mile and the 8-mile foot march, as well as the basic troop leading procedures and operations order. I'm going to pause there for a little bit to talk about operations orders. So, as we talked about originally in the individual student assessment plan, there are points assigned. So what you're trying to achieve is to get to 700 out of 1,000 points total throughout the course. Throughout the duration of the Infantry Basic Officer Leader course, you're going to receive 6 company level operations orders. From those company level operations orders that are given to you by your company commander or your platoon cadre, you will then write a respective platoon level operations order that is nested with your company operations order for the specific mission you've given. There are 6 of those distributed evenly throughout the course that you will be graded upon. All right, some of those you will be in leadership positions for, i.e. you will either be the platoon leader, one of the squad leaders, or the platoon sergeant, so you will receive a formal grade. But everybody in your platoon will actually write the operations order. Just because you're in a leadership position doesn't mean your order will be graded, but throughout the duration of the course, throughout the 19 weeks, you will be graded 6 times on 6 different operations orders, and those will result in either a higher or lower number of points based off your score on the operations order and the rubric we use for grading, which comes straight out of the doctrinal foundations established in ATP 3-21.8. So as we move into the final gate, which are weeks 11 through 19, 19 being final counseling and graduation, we are now transitioning. So in gate 2, you're really doing the individual level tasks and training with basic rifle marksmanship and understanding some doctrinal foundations and land navigation. We then moved into squad and fire team, and now we're moving into platoon collective operations. So you can see the natural progression throughout the 19 weeks of the course, and it's foundational, like a pyramid. We establish that foundation initially when you get up here, and we continually build towards the culminating event of you graduating, completing a platoon live fire, completing the final leader forge exercise where you move out as a company and you execute platoon operations on behalf of the company, but disperse throughout the platoon's missions to support the overall company mission. So for gate 4, you're going to do introduction to platoon operations. You're going to go out to the field where you'll be taught and mentored by your cadre on platoon level maneuver and operations in a field environment, to include patrol bases, to include maneuvement, to include reconnaissance, attack, defense, throughout the duration of that week. You will then be evaluated during the second week, in which time you will also conduct a 10-mile foot march. So it's a crawl, walk, run methodology. So where you receive classroom instruction, move to the field, you're then taught and mentored through cadre-led patrols and cadre-led operations, and then we then give you the front leadership role, and then you're actually conducting on your own, being evaluated in one of the key leadership positions, whether that's platoon leader, platoon sergeant, or one of the squad leaders for the duration of those 2 weeks you spend in the field. You'll then return during week 13. You'll do advanced troop leading procedures. This is refinement based off what you've learned throughout the time so thus far inside of IBOLC, from the doctrinal foundations, basic platoon leader or basic troop leading procedures, classes that you received up front. This is where we bring this together and we reflect on everything you've done up to this point. So you've received your classes and gone to the field and actually executed fire team, squad, and platoon operations, executed operations orders, followed troop leading procedures. Now, this is our time for reflect, do AERs, and talk to you about, okay, let's break down each one of the steps of troop leading procedures and how did this affect you as a platoon leader, and what are the considerations that you're going to have when you go out to your unit of assignment as a platoon leader. How should this be implemented when you actually get to your platoon, and what are you going to do, and what have you learned thus far? Once you complete with week 13, then we're going to move into platoon level defensive operations in week 14 and urban operations, followed by mounted operations. This is where I bring it up to the next level. We're all at the platoon level at this point, but now we're going to take you through platoon defense, engagement area development, working through assignment of weapon systems. How do you build the proper engagement areas? What are the steps in engagement area development? What are the different types of defenses? When do you use them? And then we'll take you into urban operations. Follow through the principles of urban operations. How do you maneuver and conduct operations in an urban environment? And then mounted operations. This is where we'll bring you out. We'll bring Bradleys out and we'll familiarize you with what are mounted operations in a mechanized formation. What are some of the considerations at the platoon level that you need to be aware of? Whether that's how do you disperse your personnel and task organize them in the back of the Bradleys? How do you transition from movement to maneuver with a vehicle, i.e. a Bradley or a Stryker? And then when do you dismount? Where's the probable line of contact? What are the forms of contact? And what are some of the considerations logistically and mechanically and maintenance-wise that you have to take in consideration? And how you should properly use the weapon system on that vehicle to support your maneuver and support your mission. This is a critical week, and it's somewhat of a culminating week as you've gone through advanced troop leading procedures, defensive operations, urban operations, your orientation to platoon operations, and now we're rounding it out with a little bit more complexity with mounted operations. Once you complete week 16, you'll conduct a 12-mile foot march. This is a graded event. It is a pass-fail event that you must pass prior to the graduation, from the Infantry Basic Officer Leader course. And then you'll move into the platoon live fire. Platoon live fire is a platoon attack, enter and clear a trench, and breach construct and methodology of how we execute with the deliberate support by fire that is facilitating your maneuver under day and night live fire conditions. Phenomenal event, always positive AR comments, and it's really a culmination of all the things that have built to this point of your knowledge and the instruction that you've received. This is where we see you actually start to understand how do we set conditions as a platoon leader using our organic weapons. How do we define conditions to our squad leaders that trigger subsequent actions and follow-on actions on an objective. Once you finish platoon live fire, you will then transition out to leader forge. This is the final icing on the cake for you as platoon leaders, where your platoons will go out as a company and you will conduct movements to contact, decentralized operations at the company level as platoons, but synchronized at a company level through your cadre. This is for you to get a feel of the understanding that as a platoon leader, up until this point, we've been very focused on just the platoon. But for you to understand the intricacies of a platoon leader, you are part of a larger operation at a company level. You must understand the company commander's vision and intent to be able to execute at your level and make decisions when potentially you're not in direct communications with your company commander. So understanding the nested concept of the task and purpose tree and how you fit into the overall construct of the mission and how you're contributing, whether you are a decisive effort or a shaping effort, is absolutely critical. And what we've seen is there's a lot of growth during this week out there. This is where it all comes together, where you are giving reports as a platoon leader, You're trying to get the logistics right with your platoon sergeant and the supplies that you need and getting those up so that when you get supplies in the morning and the afternoon, the log pack is actually correct and you receive the correct amount of water, ammunition, and food, class 1, 3, and 5, or fuel that you may need for your vehicles. And we see this as a really good exercise to kind of finish off your time in IBOLC and prepare you for going out to your unit of assignment. And then week 19 is counseling and graduation, as well as your comprehensive exam and ACFT. All right, so that's the 19 weeks going down. We'll also do peers during week 4. Now, having broken down all 19 weeks using a training, progressive training methodology, individual, team, squad, platoon, culminating with some understanding of company level operations, I want to talk to you more specifically about the ISAP, so the Individual Student Assessment Plan. We talked about the gates and some of the things that you have to do to progress through each phase of the Infantry Basic Officer Leader course, but it's critical that you also know what we want you to learn is relative to the points that we give it here and what is critical for you to be successful as a platoon leader. So as you think about your first 90 to 120 days as a platoon leader, you're gonna absolutely have to do certain things. And it really doesn't matter what type of formation you go to, whether in your light, airborne, air assault, mechanized, striker, you're gonna be required to probably do a few things within your first 120 days in a unit. You're gonna have to initially counsel your squad leaders and platoon sergeants. You're gonna have to assign for equipment. You're gonna have to understand accountability of equipment and what goes into a shortage annex and what is important for you as a platoon leader to understand, and how to sub-hand receipt. You potentially be given an additional duty of either an arms room officer, supply room officer, or have to conduct a FLIPL, as well as probably conduct a range, write an operations order, write a MOI for concurrent training at a range or a fire team or squad live fire, potentially the platoon live fire. All those things are going to happen in your first 90 to 120 days, and the probability is very high. So how do we ensure that throughout the duration of the course of IBOLC that we are then emphasizing the importance of those things in the individual student assessment plan, and how do we then make those things count inside of the points? So on this right side here on the scale, what you'll see are various things. So land navigation, M4 qualification, entrance exam, comprehensive exam, your 6 operations orders, the paper you write after your class on FLIPL, paper you write on counseling your platoon sergeant after you're receiving your class, and troop leading procedures. All those things come with various points assigned to them, of which out of 1,000 you need at least 700, 70% to graduate. So these individual events are broken down across all 19 weeks of the course. So as you come in to IBOLC and you're going through each week that we've just broken down, it is absolutely important that you understand where we're placing emphasis here is absolutely deliberate, all right? Because we want you to focus and we want you to understand the importance of those events, because we've identified, based off of everyone's experience here, the cadre, the feedback from the force, these are the things that are going to be critical for you once you get to your unit of assignment. So today we talked about the 19 weeks of IBOLC, what you can expect during each week, and some of the critical events and the training methodology associated with them. We've talked about the ISAP point breakdown and the gates. The last thing I want to close out prior to getting here, so we get a lot of conversation, and sometimes as I'm doing in-stride AARs and just kind of touch points with each one of the classes, I get a lot of questions about things that are pertaining to after IBOLC. And we talked about last time the pipeline. We talked about, if you're going to a striker unit, an airborne unit, a mechanized unit, post-IBOLC, you're going to attend these respective courses, whether that's the Bradley Leader course, Striker Leader course, Ranger School, Airborne School, etc. Agnostic of any one of those courses of action based off your unit assignment, what we want you to focus on while you're in IBOLC is just IBOLC. We want you to be, our course outcomes are to be a combat-ready infantry platoon leader capable of leading their platoon in combat. To do that, we only ask that you focus on understanding ATP 3-21.8, and at most, for all those going to Ranger School, is understanding the actual TC 3-2176, which is the Ranger Handbook. All right, these two things are very similar. All right, in terms of the doctrinal definitions and what they do, they're almost symbiotic if you want to look at it that way. But we don't want your focus to go beyond IBOLC right now. Those courses will come, but you're only going to get one chance at IBOLC. You're only going to get one chance to get this doctrinal foundation, the understanding of fire team, squad, and platoon level before you get to your unit, and you have to execute it as the platoon leader. So take the time. Don't be in a rush. You've got 19 weeks. We want to do it right, and we want you to get the most out of it. Hey, thank you for taking time today. I hope that I've answered some of the questions you may have prior to coming here to Fort Benning and attending the Infantry Basic Officer Leader course. As always, if you have questions, please put them in the comments block. We'll do our best to get back with you as quickly as possible. But again, thank you for attending today.